Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Margaret, and today I am talking to Ashley Graber and Maria Evans. They are globally recognized parenting coaches, child and family psychotherapists, and speakers. Through their parenting groups, they empower caregivers to navigate the complex journey of raising children by providing insights into child behavior. Their approach encourages parents to practice skills in real time while fostering confidence and connection. Their evidence-based psychotherapeutic exercises and tools are effective and easy to implement at home with children or in psychotherapy offices. Welcome, Ashley and Maria.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about anxiety in kids. I think that this is something, I was an anxious child. Now I'm an anxious parent. Imagine that. And I feel like we talked about being anxious and nervous when I was a child, but not as much. I feel like this becomes kind of the presenting issue for parents in this time. Is there more anxiety in kids, or is it something that we're just more aware of now?
I'll jump in and start, and I'm sure Maria will have something to add to it. I think it's both. I think there is more that kids are worried about and parents are worried about today. And I think we're talking about it more, that psychotherapy is more normalized, or talking about having some kind of stress or mental health issue is more normalized, more widely known and more accepted. And I think there's so many more things that parents are worried about today, and so many more things that kids are experiencing, affected by.
And Maria, let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that, statistically, we see that children are growing up in a very safe environment, statistically, but that we're still seeing this enormous amount of anxiety. Do we have too much information? Is that where we're getting this anxiety from?
It's a great question. And therapists and researchers in the last few years have really tried to crack that answer. There are a lot of leading theories about why anxiety is on the rise. And it's not just because we're noticing it more. A lot of it has to do with the fast pace of information that we receive. It has to do with the 24-hour news cycle that has now become the 5-minute news cycle. It has to do with screens, which is not just that kids are on screens themselves, but also just that they can see a piece of information pop out from anywhere, whether it's a friend's screen on a school bus or some rumor that they've heard that somebody else has shared. So parents are inundated with not only their kids learning about the world, but also a lot that actually feels much more scary. Like they're hearing about global warming, they're hearing about school shootings, they're hearing about wars, they're hearing about political unrest and divisiveness. And all of these things are they're making the parents anxious. And so it makes it a little bit harder for parents to make it feel safe at home.
And I should have said in your bio, your book is called Raising Calm Kids in a World of Worry. So this is why we're talking about anxiety. And I think the idea of raising calm kids is something that we all want. I also know, having been an anxious child, my mother was a licensed marriage and family therapist, as you both are. And she used to say to me when I'd say, oh, I'm just anxious about this, she would say, the anxious bunny survives. So anxiety is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think it's important to kind of define anxiety, because anxiety is, right, like a biological imperative, which we like to talk about on the podcast. It tells us how to operate in the world. Anxiety is important, but how do we start to talk to our kids about the kind of positives and negatives of anxiety?
Well, first off, it's so important to normalize that word. And in our book, we use the words anxiety, fear, and worry interchangeably. And the reason is that we want to destigmatize that experience. Sometimes parents are afraid to use that word because they feel like it might be a diagnosis or something much bigger than it is. So we want kids to understand that having anxiety is, as you say, Margaret, it's useful. We need it, right? It tells us not to touch a burning stove, or it tells us not to run across the street when there's a car, and it alerts us. And in times that there's more danger, like I'm sure you know about the California fires. Right now, we're telling parents, if your body's feeling shaky and you're feeling nervous, that's your body trying to protect itself. That's okay. And that's normal.
And I wonder about, when I think about the kids I know, my own kids, and I talk to parents, I'll often hear people say, my child has anxiety, and that is somehow a demarcation between a kid. All of my kids have anxiety, but if I were to say, this is my anxious kid, I would certainly know who I'm talking about. So is that quantifiable for parents, where that line is between all kids worry about the kind of things we're talking about, the events of the world, the things they see on social media? Is there something where you say, okay, this is a line where anxiety goes from a biological imperative that we all need into a realm where it's something we want to begin worrying about? Ashley, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's actually a big part of the reason why we wrote the book was to help parents to identify what is happening. And as Maria said, without stigmatizing what it is, but to understand that, yes, as you said, we need to worry to a certain extent. We would never get out of bed in the morning if we didn't have a certain level of anxiety, and we would walk into oncoming traffic if we didn't have a level of worry. But there is a line where it can cross over. And when it does, it gets in the way of functioning in life. And that's what we are trying to help parents to uncover in the book by explaining what worry is and how to spot it so that they can see, well, this is going on with my child. And then here are some tools to work with it. And at a certain point, if it's not helping, then maybe to get some further help for it. And that there is a line where it can cross over into a place where a person, a child, an adult isn't functioning in a way that is what we would hope for them. And just to put it into simple terms, if a child isn't going to school every day, we would want to figure out what's happening for them. Now, that could be because there's anxiety going on that's biological. Like you said, you have anxiety, your kids have anxiety, and it could be something going on with at school, just as an example, that's causing it. And so if parents can understand what's happening and apply tools, then they might be able to intercept in a moment and not have to take it to another level, see a doctor, see a therapist about it. Not that there's any problem, of course, that we believe in doing those things, but there is a certain place where it does tip over, and that's generally around functioning. If a child is not functioning,
I think there's something so interesting about anxiety that I'm finding now with having tweens and teens in my house, that there's a huge anxiety is so personal. And I find it really interesting in dealing with my kids that sometimes I am like, who cares what that dumb kid thinks of you? You're not even going to remember that kid when you're 50, believe me. And that anxiety, that I can be dismissive of my kids' anxiety because I want them to just put my head on for a minute and realize, oh, that doesn't actually matter in the long stream. What you get on this Regents exam is who cares? It's not going to have any, effect on the outcome of your life. But Maria, it's important to not be dismissive of our kids' anxieties.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we talk all the time about, and I'm sure parents hear this buzzword a lot, is validating emotions. That means that no matter how small it feels to you, it feels really big for your child or your teen. If they get left out from one party and they're not going to remember it, even maybe in 6 months, it's a really big deal in that moment. And what you're doing when you're validating them is you're creating a safe environment for them to come to you, not only for things like this, but for everything. And just by saying, I get that that's scary, or I get that that was hard, that settles the emotions that we have. It actually does so much to just bring it down. And the other thing that I think when Ashley was talking about kids that might not be going to school, you think about kids are exposed to almost all the same factors in some way, right? All kids know about school shootings. All kids get left out. All kids hear about fires and, that's what's on my mind right now, or earthquakes or things like that. But not all kids get debilitated to the level where they can't go to the activity or where they need to stay close to their parent. And so anxiety is in some way about how do you filter that information through your mind? And if it's feeling too big and too overwhelming, then the tools that we teach help kids to get more control over how the information moves through their mind. So really externalizing, I got an anxious thought. What can I do with that thought? Can I let it pass by on a cloud? Can I take some breaths and watch my body calm down, right? There's so many things we can do once we realize that the thought is happening to us, not that it's totally uncontrollable.
Another thing that you talk about that I think is so interesting and so misunderstood, and I misunderstood, we had a tragedy that happened in our town years ago, and it was an extremely shocking event for the parents, for the children. It was just kind of out of bounds of something that any of us thought we were going to be dealing with. And you talk about misreading the signs of anxiety, and it was really fascinating to me to see young kids reacting to this event through laughter sometimes, through play, through anger, through acting out in ways that I wouldn't have expected. And because I knew the match that had lit this, I was able to see, I would expect kids to be nervous, to be expressing worry, or to be tearful and expressing sadness. And in fact, the behaviors were all over the map in a way that I found really confusing. But having seen it firsthand, it's something that I try to talk about with other parents because I saw so clearly how the reactions were not textbook. So Ashley, talk a little bit about your research on that and how anxiety can present in ways that we're not expecting.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We see with kids that so often, as you said, they will act something out in play, or they will maybe laugh in a moment when something is really serious. And we can sometimes even do that as adults. And when that happens, it's a defense against what feels really big. Like if we laugh when something is very serious, or for example, with kids, we'll see that if a dog dies in the family or a pet dies in the family, and then a child will play dead, or their dolls, they'll play dead with their dolls, or they'll talk to all different kinds of people about this thing. And when something happens and children respond to it, they will do it in a different way than we might. We might sit down and talk about it, and then they might play it out. We might cry about it, and they might seem like there's nothing going on. Or you ask them about something very serious, and they say, I'm not thinking about it at all. And as you said, the reactions just can be very different. And we have parents talking to us about this all the time. whether it's massive tragedy like the wildfires that are happening in California right now, or something which is, of course, huge into a family like losing a pet. We see parents very confused by what the reaction is that their child or children are having. And children express through play. That's how they learn. That's how they process their emotions that are coming up. And so it's kind of the opposite of what we do. We don't sit down and play with something. We sit down and talk about it or journal about it or go to therapy. So it is very much confusing to parents when reactions are very, very different and sometimes quite the opposite of what you would expect from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm talking to Ashley Graber and Maria Evans. They are the author of the new book, Raising Calm Kids in a World of Worry, and we'll be right back.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
So you present in the book the S.A.F.E.R parenting method. And I'd like to talk through this because I love a system. I mean, because I feel like sometimes we talk in kind of 30,000 foot view about these issues. And it's like, okay, but what do I actually do? So Maria, start talking us through the S.A.F.E.R method, what the letters stand for, and how the system works to combat anxiety in kids.
Absolutely. So we want you to think about the words S.A.F.E.R parenting. The reason that we called it S.A.F.E.R is because we are teaching you how to create emotional safety with your child. It's that simple. How do I create emotional safety? And there are 5 steps, and each one starts with one of those letters. So I'll go through them very briefly so you can try to remember, okay? So S is set the tone. That's all about you maintaining a calm demeanor and creating a home that feels as relaxed as possible and routined, okay? That's all about you creating an environment. A is allow feelings to guide behaviors. This is what we were talking about earlier, about validating feelings, letting all feelings exist, and remembering the feeling is okay and the behavior we will guide, right? So that allows you to parent in a way where you're still accepting emotions, but you're helping them through, what do I do with my anxiety? Or how do I not hit my brother and instead maybe do something else, right? F is form identity. This is all about self-esteem. When kids feel good about themselves and they know that their parents love them, they feel better in the world. So that's all about building up your child's identity in a community that cares about them. E is engage like a pro. That's a very special section in our book where we teach the sort of secret therapist methods for getting kids to open up and talk to you and keep talking. So that one is a little bit more involved. It's got some really specific tools in there, but that's all about get your kid to talk to you. That makes all the difference. Okay. And then R, the very final and hardest one, is called.
We hate this one, guys. You know what it's going to be.
This is the worst one. So I'll give you permission to roll your eyes at me. And the word is role modeling. Okay. And I know you've heard that word a lot in your lives, but our take on it is not everything is perfect. But when it's not, and when you are dealing with something big, how do you talk about it with your child? How do you fess up? How do you do it in an age-appropriate way where your child knows nothing is too scary to talk about? And even grandma's drinking habit or grandpa's anger issue can be talked about, and I can have a plan around it, even though it can't stop yet, right? So role modeling behaviors and also talking about what's hard.
Yeah, we often joke that the bad news is your kids are going to grow up just
Yes.
like you. So unfortunately, we got to start with the man in the mirror, as they say, which feels hard. We're like, shouldn't this be their job at this point? I think what's really interesting about this approach and this method is that I think a lot of the conflict around anxiety with our kids comes because it feels like we're constantly reacting and we're reacting inappropriately, or we didn't say the right thing and we didn't feel like we had the right tool in our belt when something came up. But Ashley, I think the message is that this work happens all the time, not just during a crisis time.
That's absolutely right. And thank you for saying that, because that is such an important aspect of this, is that it can happen and it can start anytime, which I think is really important to know as well. It's never too late to start implementing some of these. And there isn't an expectation that a parent's going to pick up the book and then suddenly have S.A.F.E.R. all figured out and implementing it, that it is something that happens over time. And that when children see you trying something, anything, then they get permission to do that too. And the steps in being able to communicate with your kids, for instance, or being able to say to them, this is something that I'm working on, and I'm in an age-appropriate way, depending on how old your child is, expressing what that is so that they can see, oh, this is something that we're doing. And repair is another word that parents hear a lot about. It's a really important aspect of all of this, that if things go quote unquote sideways, if someone loses their cool or they're trying to implement something new and they just don't have it in them that day, that they can go back and say, this is something I'm working on, just like you're working on math, just like you're working on tennis, whatever it might be. And we're going to keep trying at this. And Maria and I have always said that we wanted to lay this out so that parents have all of the tools that we know, but that if they picked one letter and worked on that for the next year, that would make the hugest difference in their family. That, yes, try all of the tools out. They're all laid out in a really simple way, but to work on one thing at a time, just like we ask kids to do. Just put their effort into it and try and be consistent. That's the most important thing. We're not asking for big things, but consistency is important. And we know that for everything, whether it's this parenting method or, again, tennis. I'm a tennis player. I took it up about 1.5 years ago, and I have to try so hard at it all the time because it's not easy and it takes years just like this, so that this is a process and it's something that they can do all the time and throughout their entire child's life. And if they start to lay this foundation, the most important piece of this is psychological safety, that children feel safe to come to their parents. And I think Maria made mention of this before, for the small things, but what's really important is that you're laying the groundwork for the big things. When something big really happens in your community or in your family, then children know they can come back because just like them, their parent is trying something new. They're trying to be even better every day.
Right, a little braver. And I want to talk about the F, the forming identity, because I think often there's a cycle that happens where you're an anxious parent. And so you kind of get a little overprotective with your children. And then they don't have a lot of experience of challenge. And then they become more anxious because they haven't tried a lot of things. My kid is in scouting. And one of the things they do as a scout is they go camping and then they leave the campsite for the night and they have to just spend the night by themselves. No sleeping bag, no nothing. Just go out, make a shelter and sleep in the woods by themselves overnight. And thank goodness I was not really there for this. My husband was there because I would have been like, you can't do this. That's crazy. Like my little baby alone in the woods at night. No, thank you. There's bears. There's all sorts of things that could go wrong. But in overcoming my anxiety around some things and really in letting my kids do things out of my sight so that I'm less there hovering and being anxious, the value of a kid who has spent a night by themselves in the woods without anything but a knife and no sleeping bag is that kid comes back from that experience feeling so empowered and so much less anxious. I slept in the woods alone by myself. I can definitely face this exam that I have on Monday morning. So Maria, talk a little bit. We sometimes joke that like we all think there's a self-esteem box hidden somewhere in the woods that our kids have to find and open it, and then they'll have self-esteem. But it's 1,000 little experiences that really, or maybe sometimes a couple of big experiences that allow our kids that feeling of, oh, wait, I can do this without mom keeping me safe.
Yes, yes. For parents listening, I'm sure you can relate to a moment that you saw your child try something alone for the first time and just the look of shock on their face and pride. They like, wow, I did this, right? Childhood is all about learning agency, self-efficacy, and eventually becoming your own person. And so that does start with small things like, I can do this. I learned how to make scrambled eggs. We have kids coming into our offices all the time saying, do you know that I know how to make mac and cheese by myself? That is a huge self-esteem builder. I ordered my own drink at the store. My parent waited over there while I went and picked out my own pencils at CVS. That is a big deal. It starts right there. And, something like sleeping in the woods, that is huge. I mean, those experiences build on themselves. And we often talk about teaching very small, incremental ways to be independent, whether that's even just learning how to run the laundry, right? Or load the dishwasher. And not only is it great to have a little helper around who can actually pick up a little bit of the slack, but it's tremendously esteem building. And that's not the only way that we build self-esteem in kids, but that's certainly a big one. And what we don't want, we caution parents not to overprotect and not to think, well, maybe they're too young or maybe they can't handle it. Let them try the hard thing and let them make mistakes too, because that's how children learn. So you want them to not quite get it right. And before you jump in, because the more anxious you are as a parent, the more likely you're going to try to fix, right? So keep your hands behind your back, bite your tongue, hold your breath, and just watch your child and they will figure it out. It's like when they're 1.5 and they're learning to climb a little bit, right? Same thing for the rest of childhood,
Yeah. And Ashley, you talk about in the book, it's something we've talked a lot about on the podcast, is the disappearance of free play from kids' lives. And so that I think it's hard for people maybe of this generation to even realize that structured sports, structured activity, then let's all go to the community center where there's 3 aides watching everything everyone does, and how that plays into, it works against your F, your form identity, because there is always an adult. And this is from very good intentions. This is from people trying to keep children safe. We're for that. But that recognizing a little bit how the lack of free play plays into anxiety. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it starts with schools first, that there is just less time. There's more time kids are sitting at desks and less time that they're actually moving around. And then there's more activities, and it's great. Kids have so much more opportunity to do things. And then if they don't have structured activities, they might be on a screen or doing something where they're sitting staring, or they're sitting having to do a lot of homework. Whatever it might be in the family or with the particular child, there is less time of doing kind of nothing. What we would think of almost is nothing. And I remember when I was a kid, I made mud pies, and we were told, get out of the house and go in the backyard and just figure it out. And there wasn't a plan for what we were supposed to do. We just did that. And I think it's great what kids can have the opportunities of today with more activities. But as you said, this way in which kids have to be overseen in a lot of ways for safety does mean that there is this lack of sort of doing nothing time. And we do talk about that, just to allow that time, because our brains need that. They need the time to just be still and let our nervous system kind of relax. And play is children's language. And if we're constantly going, our stress level is just up. But when we play or do nothing or sit quietly, that allows our nervous system to relax. It allows a child's nervous system to relax, which allows for more space when they do have to do something else. And so it's really important that if there are a lot of activities or there is a lot of homework, whatever the situation is, that kids are just allowed time, that they don't have to do anything. And Maria and I see this a lot. We actually tell parents a lot, all of these birthday parties are wonderful and all of these activities are wonderful. And let's plan a little nothing as well.
Plan a little nothing. That's a plan I can definitely get down with. I'm talking to Ashley Graber and Maria Evans. They are the authors of the new book, Raising Calm Kids in a World of Worry. We're going to take a break and come back and talk about finding that calm.
All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
So you say in the book, I really like this phrase, calm is contagious. And so Maria, talk a little bit about that phrase. And I think I get what it means, but how do we lean in and make calm the contagion in our household?
I love that. Yes. Calm is contagious. We say that because we get our cues from other people. This is evolutionary. If you were in a pack and somebody suddenly got really anxious and started running, you would start running too, right? So we think about the adults in the home are really cueing the safety for the kids. So the more anxious and amped up you are, and the more you're cueing danger, the more scared your kids might feel. So we talk about something called safe versus scary framing. This is the easiest way to explain this concept, which is when you are sharing or when you're talking about really anything in the world with your child, you want to think about how you're framing it. There's so many different angles. And you could say, this horrible thing happened. I don't know how anyone's going to get through it. It's just terrible. And you can be catastrophizing. Or you can say, something happened. I'm going to share it with you and I'm going to find out how you feel about it. You might have a lot of big feelings and that's okay, right? And the way that you share cues, I feel calm enough to talk about this with you, even though it might sound scary, right? And children take that in. I mean, they take that calm in like it's medicine.
What about times where we can't do that? What about times where, let's say we're dealing with our own parents' illness or death, something big that's really affecting us emotionally? Because I think the generation before me, I come from an Irish Catholic family, it was very much emotions bad. I mean, lovely people, but there was definitely a very strong importance put on keeping that kind of calm and let's not have a lot of crying at the funeral. That would be unseemly. And so, Ashley, talk about that line a little bit between, yes, we want to keep calm for our kids, but maybe not at the expense of just like constantly plastering a smile on our face and being like, yeah, nothing to see here. It's totally doesn't bother me at all that my mom is really sick.
It's such a good question because kids pick up on that too.
They're not as dumb as we think they are.
Exactly. And so they will pick up on, mom is saying that there's nothing to worry about, but I can feel that there is something to worry about. And that will cause worry and anxiety inside of them because it's not that a parent ever means to do this, but there's like a dishonesty in it where, like you said, sometimes we just can't act that way. Sometimes we just can't be super calm. And we don't actually want parents to think they have to be calm in everything. We want them more to think about, let's be age appropriately honest about what's going on. And let's model for a child. This is a big thing for me. The example that you used, my mom is sick, grandma is sick. And so I'm going to go take care of myself in some ways. And that may not be that somebody can go do something big, like even work out. But it may be that they take a moment because they can feel inside of themselves that their anxiety is rising up. So they say that in an age appropriate and calm way to their child. I am upset right now. And it's okay when these things are happening for us to be upset. I'm an adult. And so you don't have to take care of my feelings. And I have other people who are adults that I can talk to about this, but this is the truth of what's going on right now, so that there isn't this disconnect that you're feeling as a parent and that the child is also feeling.
That also goes back to role modeling that Ashley so beautifully described, which is it's okay to say, you see mommy crying and that's because mommy's sad, and crying gets the sad out. And sometimes we cry when we're sad, and you don't have to take care of me, but I have, that's the main idea, is just you don't have to take care of me, but teaching about crying being.
But I can still feel my feelings. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Marie, can we talk a little bit about kids who have anxiety. I think sometimes we talk about methodology and the system and it all makes sense. And then we have a child who's on the spectrum or has anxiety disorder or might have ADHD or other things that contribute to a level of anxiety that feels bigger and harder than the kind of day-to-day anxiety that all children face. And do we change our methods with this child? Do we do more of this? Is there a different approach? Because I think sometimes for parents, it can feel exhausting to deal with a constant level of anxiety that feels like whatever we do, we are not bringing that anxiety level down. We might feel like, okay, I'm running safer, I'm trying it all, but this kid just feels overwhelmed by anxiety all the time in a way that feels hard for me to touch.
Absolutely. And that can be so hard for parents. And those are really the parents that we talk to most of the time, right? So the answer to this is that there's no one size fits all approach. All kids are different. Most kids thrive off of some level of routine and those calming tools and the things that you might read in the book. And at the same time, if you're a parent who is feeling like, gosh, I've tried everything, I've done everything and nothing is working, this is hopeless. Often there's a sense of hopelessness there. That's when they call us, right? That's when they call a therapist. And typically what happens is they will find out right off the bat, even in session 1 or 2, that there are a few things that they've been doing that may not be actually as helpful. And there's a lot of hope right away. Like, oh, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to be, reassuring her every time she brings her anxiety to me. That's a tricky one that most parents don't know about, is you're not supposed to reassure that everything's okay if your kid has an anxious thought on loop. Most parents don't know that, right? So they might feel
such a hard, and even if you do know it, it's hard to resist. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Don't worry. It'll be fine.
That's right. And what you're actually doing is strengthening the worry loop. And so you might think my kid is not helpable, but the truth is we know how to help, right? So find a local therapist in your town, go and access some resources, talk to a school counselor and see if you can figure out exactly what's going on. And when it's a really tough nut to crack, that's when we move into psychological testing, because there's all this great testing that psychologists do to figure out exactly what your child needs to thrive and how they need to learn and how they process information and what sort of routines they need. There's a lot of hope, even when it feels like, gosh, I'm just trying everything.
That's great. It's really hopeful. And there are so many coping skills in the book. We obviously won't touch everything in the book because everyone's going to go buy the book. But I do want to just click on one coping skill because I feel like this is something a therapist helped me figure out for myself, and it has really helped with my kids. And it is the phrase, guide behaviors, not feelings. So separating behavior from feeling. And this for me is like, it's okay to feel frustrated. It's not okay to punch your brother in the face. And putting, Amy calls it slipping a piece of paper between the two. And so Ashley, talk a little bit about what it means to guide behavior and not feelings.
It's actually, to what Maria said before, one of the sort of light bulb moments I think that a lot of parents have that come to us, that they are guiding feelings or they're saying that feelings aren't okay. And that's what we say. All feelings are okay, but behavior is not necessarily. And so first, most important thing is to get an emotional vocabulary between yourself and with your child. Start talking about feelings. And so that there is some awareness, if it isn't there already, around what are the feelings that my child is expressing. Start paying attention to that. And then look at when there's a behavior, it's something that's happening in the moment. And that could be screaming, that could be throwing something, just using 2 examples. And a parent saying to themselves, all feelings are okay. Can I just, as Maria said earlier in this talk, can I validate those feelings? And to say to themselves, I don't have to accept these behaviors. I can have rules around behaviors, but that not around feelings, that really for a parent to say to themselves, all feelings are okay, and getting comfortable with it. Because if you grew up in a family, and you made mention of this before, Margaret, if you grew up in a family that didn't talk about feelings or didn't accept feelings, and it may not have been, that doesn't mean it's not a loving family. It just may not be a family that talks about feelings. And that is probably generational, that just isn't part of what is taught to you or modeled to you. Then it may be hard to feel those feelings. Parents come to us and we teach their children about their feelings. And then they come back to us and say, my child is talking to me about how they feel.
And I think it can be helpful now that I have tweens and teens to put that in front of them as well. Like, I can see you raging around the house. Let's talk about your frustration, but let's stop raging around the house. And I think for kids, it can be a very light bulb moment too of, I can separate, because I remember as a kid, and I now see it in my kids, well, of course I'm throwing things. I'm mad. I was like, no, those are two different things. Let me explain to you. Mad is fine. Throwing things, not fine.
Yeah, and that idea also extends to anxiety behaviors that maybe aren't impacting anybody else, but they're impacting them. So for example, if you're trying to help your child stop biting their nails or stop skin picking, that same principle applies, is that we're teaching kids, and you can think about this for your own life too, which is, I have a feeling, then I have a physical sensation, and then I have something I want to do, right? So when I'm anxious, I feel it in my stomach, and then I want to be on my phone all night and not talk to my partner. What could I do differently? Maybe when I feel anxious and I feel it in my stomach, I could pick a different behavior that would be more helpful, right? So that applies to kids too, and teens. And so that just starts with that piece of awareness. What do I feel? Where do I feel it? And what do I want to do about it? And can I do something else?
And probably you can, both you and your children. I really enjoyed this book. So useful for me and hopefully for my kids as well. Ashley and Maria, tell us where they can find the book. I mean, it's 2025. People know how to buy a book. But if there's somewhere specific, they should look for you and find the book.
Sure. Well, of course, if you Google Raising Calm Kids in a World of Worry, Penguin Random House, if you Google those words, the main site will come up where you can go to all the different stores and purchase the book.
And of course, we will have a link to the book in our show notes. And is there anywhere else people can find you out there in the social media world?
Absolutely. Yes. We would love for you to connect with us on Instagram. We have at Raising Calm Kids. Mine is at Maria Evans Therapy. And Ashley's is at Ashley Graber 1, like the number 1.
Okay, and you don't have to remember those things. You're driving, you're doing the laundry. It's going to be in the show notes.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Ashley and Maria, thanks so much. This was a great conversation today.
Thank you, Margaret. It was wonderful.
So good talking to you.